Mishmash! Kitbash Corner!
Hey, today we're technically doing another Marine character kitbash, but this time I'm actually building a character specifically tailored for a friend of mine. This being their Master of the Forge. To do so, I'll be combining two vastly different Marines to make one incredibly unique figure. This being, of course, a Tech Marine and a Primaris Librarian. The Primaris Librarian will serve primarily as a base for the more integral bits of the Tech Marine, but will end up doing much more than simply splicing the bits between the two figures. If you tuned into my Iron Hand successor video, you'll know I end up using the body of the Tech Marine for my Brazen Claw, so I really want to utilize the remaining bits to the best of my ability. And I think I ended up doing just that. But before we get into that, I just want to ask that you leave a like, comment, and subscribe if you like what you see. And if you really like what you see, consider becoming a channel member. You get early access to new videos, get some extra content, and it helps support me making better content overall for the channel. I just want to say a huge thank you to my channel members. But enough yapping, let's get to the figure. So first, after clipping the Librarian free from the sprue, I sliced the symbol from his belt. For this, I'm using a flat X-Acto blade to do so, and it ends up working out pretty well. I really want to do my best to be careful not to slice the ribs while doing this. A steady hand pays off, and once you sand it down, it looks just great. Next, I'd end up gluing on the Mechanicum logo from the original Tech Marine as I sliced it from the Brazen Claw, but I would soon come to realize I wasn't nearly as precise as I thought. It looks really wonky, and I ended up removing it later on. But I will say, had I been a little bit more careful, it would have been a very good addition. After doing so, I would really do my best to clean up the cloak. Mold lines will be incredibly easy to spot if we don't take care of them now, so I would do my best to slice, sand, and clean every little detail on the fabric. The Librarian's design in terms of building is not fun in my opinion. This primarily lies with how the pieces end up fitting together. Side note, to be fair, I did order this from eBay and I did not have the instructions, so that might be my fault. As you can see, without using the purity seals built into the kit, the two pieces of the cloak do not line up particularly neatly. I do my best to seal one side with the sprue goo, making sure it properly conforms before doing the same with the other side of the cloak. Keeping a little bit more pressure ensures that it melts together. We don't want to squeeze it, mind you, but a light pinch will do. And this doesn't necessarily mean there won't be a gap on the fabric, and in fact there will be. To remedy this, I would add a generous amount of blending sprue goo between each piece. Once I did so, I would glue on the axe, and surprisingly it fits like a damn glove. The two kits were basically made to conform to one another. After fitting the arm, I glued the Tech Marine backpack on, and I would use the grav pistol in line with the backpack's little tube thing. I wouldn't have to do too much work, as getting these pieces in place was very easy. Though I will admit, I should have glued the purity seals under this cable first. I most definitely caused myself a lot more trouble by being indecisive in this part, but that's just kind of how it goes when you're building miniatures. Unless you plan ahead, but that's for people with brains, and those people are nerds. At this point, I decided to pop off the Mechanicum symbol as I alluded to earlier. To fill in this space, I began by using some iron handsy bits. I first started with this little dial thing. I'm not quite sure what this is supposed to be, but it would fit nicely into the weird jingly baby keys the Librarian has for some reason. I don't know what these are for. Also just want to mention that the book and keys were something I wasn't quite sure if I should keep, but my friend told me they looked fine as is. And I'm glad they did, because I really didn't want to remove them because I'm lazy. I also decided to add in a purity seal. It fits nicely on the buckle, though looking back I kinda wish I added in something else, mostly for this little bald spot here. However, after the painting phase, I really don't mind it. Honestly, looking back, I kinda wish I left the Mechanicum symbol on. After using this purity seal, I could have really put it over that warped side, but if you're following along, maybe you guys could try it out. Also just want to mention a side note that if you guys want to show me your miniatures, join the Discord. We have sections dedicated to posting miniatures you've painted and ones you've kitbashed. For the other side of the cloak, I decided to add in a Mechanicum seal from the Iron Hands upgrade kit. The one thing I don't like about the Mechanicum purity seals is you really have to sand them down to make them fit better like a typical purity seal would. I have plenty more that I could have used too, but I felt like just adding one in would be nice. It's much more fitting thematically, but I find painting regular purity seals to be way too fun. After doing that little element, I would end up using some more pure Tamiya cement over my previously established sprue goo. This is to really smooth things out, and I would also add in some more purity seals from the base kit. Like I said previously, it would have been smarter to add this in before adding in the arm on, but I still wasn't 100% on whether or not I wanted to use these, so yeah, I don't know. Not a Herculean task, it just could have been easier. Now, this portion seems a little boring, but I really want to emphasize that the sanding of the goo once it dried was key. Sealing up the cracks during this time is really key in terms of making the miniature overall look really good. It's pretty obvious if you don't seal these up once the painting phase is done, and if you're like me, anytime I forget to do this with miniatures, I can't unsee it, and it makes me want to strip them completely and redo the entirety of it, which is not very productive. Once I was done fiddling around with that, I added in the heavy bolt gun to the shoulder, and I would do my best to seal up the barrel with more Tamiya. This is really the point where I started really enjoying the figure. It's all kind of coming together, and man, I love Tech Marines. Technically, this is my first one I've ever painted, and I gotta admit to you, I'm kind of sad that I'm giving this one away to my friend. Though I do think this kind of opens up the door for future videos. I might start doing commissions on the channel. But with this heavy bolter attached, the figure ends up looking a little busy, but I think it works incredibly well. And honestly, that's kind of the overall aesthetic most Tech Marines are supposed to have. But man, once we add in the servo claw, combined with this cloak, he's really starting to give me an Alfred Molina Doc Ock vibe. I'm enjoying myself if you can't tell. One thing I forgot to mention earlier is I originally intended for the pauldrons to fit the librarian's cable things, but I ultimately decided not to utilize them as they wouldn't fit to the backpack, specifically the Tech Marine backpack, without serious fiddling. Plus, it's not like these bits will go to waste. I always need little cables lying around for kitbashes and whatnot. I'm sure they'll serve me better in the long run. Once I was happy with the pauldrons, I placed on the second grabby servo claw. I love this one a lot. The underslung design combined with all the other bits on the backpack, it gives the figure something visually interesting from literally every angle. It truly has its own unique silhouette, and what I love about this is it doesn't exactly feel loud. I kind of mentioned that it does earlier, but given this guy's status as a Forge Master, it really does feel like an appropriate amount of detail. But we aren't done quite yet. One key factor is we need to add a melon. I had a lot of ideas for the figure itself, but being that this isn't my character, I left it up to my friend. They ended up choosing this severely augmented face from the Iron Hands upgrade kit. The reason being is this one has a relatively high amount of flesh still remaining on the face. Most Tech Marines without their helmets end up looking like damn Decepticons, so having a fourth of his original mug intact actually kind of gives this guy a little bit more humanity. Again, relative to a Tech Marine. But I gotta say, it's a good choice. I really like how this looks. I particularly love the Vox mouth with the actual remaining facial expression. There's a lot of character here. At this point, I was ready for painting, but I had one little idea left in mind. The original librarian has this neat crest on the top of his hood, and I felt without it, it looked a little weird. And I'm sure it would have looked fine without it, but I decided to dive into my little bits bin, and I came across this Deathwatch Necron blade. On the pommel of the sword itself, there's a little Mechanicum logo, and I'm snipping it free. I really want to make sure to clean it off too. This piece is very tiny, and if you couldn't tell from my footage, I kinda had Butterfinger syndrome while building this guy. Once it was good and clean, I added a little dollop of Tamiya to the librarian's hood, and I very neatly placed it on the very top. I would have to very gently push it in. I would kinda turn it around because for whatever reason there's a little bit of plastic that adhered to the front side of the symbol, but once I turned it around, it looked perfectly fine. And with that, I was incredibly happy with how this figure looked. That one tiny little detail really brings this guy together. But I think it's about time I get into the painting. For this figure in particular, I'm using the scheme of my friend's homebrew chapter, the Silver Hammers. They're a successor of the Iron Hands, and I'm not just saying this because they're my friend, but these guys are one of the most well-written homebrew chapters I've ever seen. There's an incredible complexity to them that really makes them stand out, and they just feel right at home in the 40k setting. If you want to know more about them, I would greatly appreciate if you checked out my friend Nightlord Shadow's video on them. He does a really good breakdown along with my other friend Uncle Sam, and I just want to push these guys to the forefront. I truly believe these guys would fit right at home in the actual canon, and now that I've kind of built one of the more integral members of the chapter, I would really love to see these guys get more recognition. But once I was finished with the painting, I was left with an incredible model. I cannot wait to see this guy on the tabletop. I have a lot of pride in this figure, I'm really glad that I got to work with a friend, and I'm glad that I was able to share it with you guys. This was a lot of work, but it was definitely worth it. This model is something I'm truly proud of, and I feel like there's something really special here. I think part of it is that I built it for a friend, but purely ergonomically and geometrically, I feel like the equal balance of the cape to the bombastic tech marine bits gives him an undeniable presence. And hey, if you found it helpful, I'd greatly appreciate it if you left a like, comment, and subscribed. Maybe share it with a friend, and remember to mishmash, kitbash, and paint some fantastic miniatures. And you're gonna. I promise. See ya.